Thanks, Andrew. That was really interesting. I think we'll hear from Mark first, and then we'll come to questions at the end. I can see there's a few questions already appearing in the Q&A. I would encourage others to also add their questions and vote on the ones that are there already. Mark, over to you.
Okay, let me just share my slides. Can you see those?
Yep, they're clear. Thanks, Mark.
Excellent. So thank you for this opportunity to respond to Andrew's presentation. I've just got a few minutes to go through some of the work that we've been doing on the user engagement side of things. So this is a slide that Jason showed earlier, and this work very much fits into that central bottom box there about turning all the understanding that we've gathered from other work packages and pulling it through into prototype services. Just also like to nod to the next work package 4, that is just kicking off now, which is focused on creating a framework to embed climate services. So this is a slightly different aspect that Andrew touched on, and I'll allude to again a bit later. So in terms of work package 3, we're very much focused on developing pilot services, as Andrew has described. And we've got a number of these listed on the left: urban, coastal, transport and energy. Those are projects led by the Met Office, and we've got a couple there. Andrew focusing on health, and also CEH leading a consortium looking to update some products that will be useful to the water sector. There's one further project within the work package, and I just thought I'd mention because there's a really interesting workshop earlier this morning and again tomorrow, looking at the use of standards and the extent to which those incorporate climate information within them. So that's being led by JBA. So there are a number of Met Office-led and a number of externally delivered projects. With regards to the demonstrators, one key aspect that runs through all of them is this idea of co-developing and working in conjunction with users to make sure that the outputs really are of interest to them. So we're very much learning from each other and taking slightly different approaches potentially to the way in which we go about doing that. So these are the stakeholders with which we have engaged or tried to engage. I think it's fair to say that we've engaged with some more than others. And the reason for that is obviously the COVID situation has impacted us pretty significantly this year. On one hand, it has meant that it's a lot more difficult to host face-to-face meetings, and particularly with this sector, it's been a real challenge. The flip side is that actually, as we move to a more virtual world, it is actually a lot easier to sometimes set up a Teams meeting or, God forbid, a Zoom meeting to engage with people directly. So there are positives and negatives, and it's fair to say it has been somewhat different. So this is work that has really been led by Andrew, Catty and Christophe from the Met Office. Christophe has had many years of experience working with the health sector, so he's been really helpful in that regard. So our initial thoughts had been presenting some of this work at conferences, and also potentially working with a specialty registrar. Both of those have been somewhat scuppered by the COVID situation. However, as Andrew mentioned, we've been holding a series of teleconferences and briefings online with each of those different organisations, and that's taken place in the last few months and worked reasonably well. So I've just got a couple of slides talking about the sort of take-home messages from the engagement that we've been undertaking. And the first point is, it's not straightforward. I mean, Andrew's presented a whole bunch of work that he's been taking forward, and the engagement has been running very much in parallel with that. Each of these organisations are themselves large and diverse and complex organisations, and obviously they're broken down into departments, many of which have different emphasis and different areas of interest with the work that we've been doing. So that has been a bit of a challenge. Within those organisations and across those organisations, their planning horizons may differ very depending on what their focus is. So within Public Health England, we've been having discussions with a couple of different groups. One is more interested in the here and now, providing updates regarding the near term, and another team is much more interested in adapting to climate change over the longer term and developing strategies for that. So even within organisations, there are some complexities there. The remits may also often differ. The remits may also differ. So I think as NHS England is more focused on hospitals and the healthcare sector, whereas Public Health England has got more of an interest in providing guidance to care homes and local authorities. So the remits may differ, plus the audience might differ. So it may well be that the information is considered to be directly relevant to end users, or it might be for internal purposes. And they may also have different processes in place or means for accessing this information from elsewhere. So we just need to be mindful of all this. So in terms of positive aspects, I think, just going to the second point there, I think all the organisations with whom we have engaged have found it really useful to speak with the scientists doing the work themselves. Speaking with them directly, I think, has resulted in a number of useful conversations. And secondly, the modelling itself is considered to be useful across all timeframes, actually, in terms of setting existing weather and upcoming alerts in context, and then thinking about more seasonal timeframes as well as longer term strategic planning for climate change, etc. So there's a range of interest there, and it's very much focused on how we can use some of Andrew's outputs to manage risk more effectively. And then moving on to challenges, I think Andrew's mentioned the EPHSS system, but the work we've been focused on so far has very much focused on developing pilots and prototype products and seeing how far we get with that. What this project is not going to deliver is a routine operational service, and that is where, that is a completely different kettle of fish, and that's where thinking turns to next. So there's a bit of a gap there between delivering pilots such as this and what then needs to happen to make it into a routine service, not only in terms of the technical infrastructure required, but actually that second point there is embedding the processes. So making sure that people use and interpret the information correctly, it is available to them in a timely fashion, and also not only for consistent use in one particular organisation, but how it can be used effectively in a consistent way across organisations, because we're conscious that there are existing processes in place and we don't want to complicate the matter by introducing something that is potentially inconsistent. So these are two things that I think we need to focus on as we move forward. So I'd just like to finish by thanking Andrew, his team, and Christoph at the Met Office for what they've done. And also just to say that this is part of a bit of an ongoing conversation. So thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and we'd very much welcome your insight should you so wish to get in contact with us in due course. So thank you very much.